Your brain isn't replaying those embarrassing moments because you're overthinking. It's replaying them because somewhere deep in your nervous system, a part of you believes your social survival might still depend on fixing them. And the unsettling part is this: the brain doesn't care that the moment is over. It cares whether the threat was fully resolved. That's why the memory waits until night. When the noise of the day disappears and the lights go out, something strange happens in the brain's threat perception circuitry. The same network that once helped humans survive tribal rejection starts scanning unfinished social wounds. Not the big dramatic traumas people expect, the small ones, the awkward comment, the joke that didn't land, the conversation where your voice sounded strange, even to you. And suddenly, without warning, your mind drags the memory back like unfinished business. But here's the question most people never think to ask: why those moments? Why not the thousands of normal interactions that went perfectly fine? Why does the brain preserve the most humiliating 5 seconds of your entire week with museum-level clarity? There's a reason this keeps happening, and it has almost nothing to do with embarrassment. The mechanism underneath it is something psychologists refer to as identity preservation bias. The brain is constantly protecting the version of you that allows you to stay accepted by the group. For most of human history, rejection wasn't uncomfortable, it was dangerous. Being pushed outside the tribe meant exposure, starvation, death. Your nervous system still operates with that ancient software. So when something socially awkward happens, even something small, your brain flags it as a potential threat to belonging. Not logically, biologically. That replay you experience at night isn't random memory recall, it's a nervous system activation loop. Your brain is running a kind of internal simulation, trying to decode whether your social identity took damage, and if it did, how to prevent it next time. But here's where things get strange. The brain doesn't actually care whether the moment was objectively embarrassing. It only cares whether you perceived it as socially dangerous. Which is why two people can experience the same awkward moment and only one of them lies awake at night replaying it frame by frame. Because the replay isn't about the event, it's about identity protection. Neuroscientists studying social pain have found something fascinating about this process. Research connected to work by psychologist Matthew Lieberman at UCLA showed that the brain processes social rejection using the same neural circuitry as physical pain. The anterior cingulate cortex activates almost identically whether you're excluded from a group or physically injured. To your brain, embarrassment isn't symbolic, it's literal threat coding, which explains why those memories feel so vivid. But this is where it turns. The brain doesn't just replay the moment, it rewrites it. When your mind runs the scene again at night, it doesn't simply observe, it edits. It slows down your voice. It exaggerates the awkward pause. It imagines the other person judging you more harshly than they probably did. And slowly, a new version of the memory forms, one where you looked worse, more exposed, more socially vulnerable. This is where the avoidance reinforcement loop begins. The brain believes it's protecting you by analyzing the mistake, but the longer the replay continues, the more the nervous system tags similar future situations as risky. The next time you speak in a meeting, the next time you join a conversation, the next time attention shifts toward you, your threat perception circuitry quietly whispers the same warning: careful, you've embarrassed yourself before. This is the part no one warns you about. The replay isn't solving the memory, it's strengthening it. Imagine your brain like a spotlight operator in a dark theater. Thousands of moments exist in the background, but the spotlight only illuminates the ones your nervous system marks as dangerous. Every time you replay the scene, the spotlight grows brighter on that exact moment, and everything else fades into the dark. That's why embarrassing memories feel bigger over time instead of smaller. The spotlight keeps returning to them. But here's where the psychological layer goes deeper. The brain isn't only protecting you from embarrassment, it's protecting you from rejection, and those are not the same thing.
Embarrassment is a surface emotion. Rejection sits underneath it. And rejection threatens something far more sensitive inside the identity system: belonging. Humans are attachment-driven organisms. From childhood, the nervous system learns one rule early: stay acceptable, stay liked, stay included. Every awkward moment that violates this internal rule gets logged by the brain like a small fracture in the identity structure. Most people think they're replaying the memory because they're self-conscious, but the truth is more uncomfortable. The brain is auditing your social safety, and the reason it chooses nighttime for this audit is simple. During the day, your attention is occupied. At night, the brain regains access to unresolved emotional data, and it starts processing. This is also why the memories often come back stronger when you're trying to fall asleep. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational control, begins to quiet down during the transition into sleep. Meanwhile, the emotional centers remain active. The result is a strange psychological imbalance: less logic, more feeling, which means the embarrassing moment now feels larger than it actually was. And this is the moment where most people misunderstand themselves. They think the problem is overthinking, but the real mechanism is unfinished emotional processing. The brain never completed the safety check, so it keeps opening the file. This is where it becomes self-sabotage, because while the brain believes it's protecting your identity, it's quietly training you to fear social exposure. Each replay reinforces the same conclusion: speaking is risky, being seen is risky, being spontaneous is risky. And slowly, something subtle changes in behavior. You hesitate more before speaking. You analyze conversations afterward. You filter your personality through caution. Not consciously, automatically. And this is where the long-term pattern begins forming. If the loop continues long enough, your brain stops seeing embarrassment as occasional. It starts seeing it as inevitable, which means the nervous system begins preemptively guarding against social situations altogether. Less vulnerability, less spontaneity, less presence, more monitoring, more self-editing, more internal surveillance. And that's the quiet cost most people never notice, because on the surface, nothing dramatic changes. You still talk to people, you still show up socially, but internally something shifts. Your brain stops experiencing connection freely. It experiences connection carefully, and careful connection never feels completely safe. Now here's the part most people resist hearing. The embarrassing moment that keeps replaying at night isn't actually the real problem. It's the brain trying to solve something older. Because the nervous system doesn't react strongly to social mistakes unless somewhere in your conditioning, rejection already carried weight. Attachment psychologists have observed this pattern repeatedly. People whose early environments made acceptance feel conditional often develop heightened social monitoring later in life. Their nervous system becomes extremely skilled at detecting signs of disapproval, even when those signs barely exist. So the brain replays the moment, not because it was catastrophic, but because somewhere inside the identity system a deeper question appeared: am I still acceptable? That's the loop you felt earlier in this video. And the brain doesn't close that question easily, because belonging has always been one of the most important survival signals the human nervous system can track. But here's the shift most people never realize. The brain doesn't replay the memory to torture you. It replays it because it believes the answer is still missing. Not whether the moment was embarrassing, but whether your identity survived it. And in reality, it almost always did. People moved on. The conversation ended. Life continued. But the brain rarely witnesses that part clearly. It only remembers the moment where the spotlight hit you, which means the memory remains open, unfinished. And unfinished memories demand attention. That's why the replay keeps happening. Not because you're weak, not because you're socially incapable, but because the human nervous system was designed to prioritize belonging over comfort. And sometimes that system becomes overprotective. The strange part is that once you see this pattern clearly, the replay itself begins to look different. less like personal failure, more like ancient survival wiring misfiring in a modern world. The memory hasn't been haunting you, your brain has been guarding you, just with outdated instructions. And the more clearly someone understands these hidden loops inside the mind, the harder it becomes for them to stay trapped inside them. Because once the mechanism is visible, the illusion loses some of its authority. But this pattern doesn't stop with embarrassing memories. The same nervous system logic quietly shapes why people avoid vulnerability, why certain conversations feel dangerous, and why loneliness often forms even when people are surrounded by others. And understanding those patterns might be even more unsettling than this one. But that's a deeper conversation for another time. Because once you start seeing the psychology beneath everyday experiences like this, it becomes impossible to stop noticing the hidden systems running underneath